Hi, I'm Dan Adler with the Best of the West and Diamond Outfitters of Arizona. You know, if I was at my house and I'd come across an SD card and I wasn't really sure which trail camera it came from, it wouldn't take me long scrolling through pictures of mule deer, mountain lion, illegal immigrants, and my favorite, Coues white-tailed deer, to know that that trail camera was from southern Arizona. For this hunt, we're hunting some of the most rugged mountains Arizona has to offer, part of the Sky Island chain, only a mere miles from Tombstone, Benson, Wilcox, where Geronimo surrendered, and a lot of Arizona's territorial history from before it was even a state. You know, the Coues deer is an incredibly tough and versatile animal. Only 36 inches at the shoulder, and most of the grass out here is 30. It's a very unique deer, first identified as a separate subspecies in the 1880s by Elliott Coues. And today, the Coues deer only occurs in Old Mexico, New Mexico, and Arizona. You know, the real secret to Coues deer hunting is understanding how to glass them. And it doesn't matter where in the world you've hunted, if you haven't hunted Coues deer before, the first time you find one, it's kind of a shock. I get tickled watching clients look through my glasses at a Coues deer and saying, "Hey Dan, the deer moved out of the glass. Is there any way you can recenter the glass so I can find the deer?" And I'll look in the glass and there's that deer standing right in the middle. I'll say, "Yeah, it hasn't moved, just look back in there." And then whether they're a novice or the most experienced hunter you've ever had in camp, to a man or a woman, they'll always say, "Wow, that's what we're going to be hunting? That's incredible." You know, I've had the privilege of being part of the Best of the West team for about a year, and I couldn't wait to have the opportunity to share with anyone from the team my home state and this animal that I love so much. So I was real excited that John Porter and his friend Ed Cochran were able to join me on this December adventure.
These Coues deer they kind of humble me when it comes to spotting animals. I mean, I've guided probably in the neighborhood of 700 to 800 big game hunts in my lifetime, and when I get here and I start looking for these Coues deer, of course I'm not used to the foliage and I don't know what size is something I'm looking for, and Dan kind of give me a crash course in finding Coues deer, but he had to show most of them to me for the first couple of days. And he's got really good eyes and good staff. And Mike brought in the mules, and Dan's not a horse or mule guy, but he said, "Well, let me talk to my mule guy here as far as doing this, you know, horseback or on mules, and we'll see if we can put this together." And Mike said he could do it, and Mike's got some good stock and good piece of country. But you know, this spotting these Coues deer for me was just it was an education. I mean, they're very difficult little animals to see. In fact, most of the area this year, the grass is actually taller than the deer, and especially when they lay down, a lot of times all you can see is just the horns sticking out, and that's a whole new lesson in glassing now, when you're just looking for the top half of his ears and his horns that's right by a bush. So it can be pretty difficult. It's pretty humbling for me.
The Best of the West is brought to you by Nosler Up Front, Sportier, Gunbroker.com, Huskama Long Range Optics, the Wild Sheep Foundation, and by LongRangeStore.com.
So the pack ride in with the Best of the West team was fairly smooth, and we were excited to have them in camp. And come morning light, we were excited to head up the mountain to see how these Wyoming boys would handle my Arizona mountains.
Was really fortunate the first full day of the hunt. Dan was able to spot a really good buck, and I don't know if I would have spotted that buck given hours to look over that hillside, because Dan's really good at what he does, and running those big 15 power binoculars, he's good with them. He can see things that I was not used to picking out. And the first thing I'm always looking for is a good shooting position, and I could see here there's the wrong slope for a right-handed shooter, can't get stacked in behind the gun right, and so I decided to just make a left-handed position work. Now I practice this a little bit, just enough to where I can make it work. It's unnatural for me, so I try to really consciously look at the level on the gun, make sure I'm not canting the gun over, and just rely on the basics to make a good shot. And what I used for a gauge there was, I told Dan, I said, well, I can hold inside that deer's ear at, I don't know, somewhere between 688 and 693 is the different ranges we had there. But, I had a good hold, and knowing that I could squeeze through that, I figured I could make it work. We ended up sitting there for about 2 hours, I would say. And finally Dan says, the deer's up, the deer's up.
Racket. That buck hunched up, moved briefly behind an oak tree. I thought for sure he was down, and to all of our surprise, moments later, he stepped back out, almost on his own bed, and gave John a perfect opportunity for a second shot, this time at about 690, 691 yards, and I mean to tell you, he hit the 10 ring.
I think you did. Dinner one. Whew. Laid there for a while on that one.
Way to go, John. What a shot, man.
Yeah, man. Well, we laid here for, I don't know, 2 hours.
Yeah, about 2 hours. Coues deer time.
Yep, waiting for this deer to get up, just bedded up there looking around. The birds are messing with him, and he finally just decided to get up.
Yeah. And he's a beautiful deer on what's considered a 100% draw or a quote-unquote non-trophy hunt. But I tell you what, that is one of the largest Coues deer bucks I've seen in this canyon in probably 10 or 12 years. And bigger deer than I've ever shot. So I couldn't be more excited to have Best of the West and Team House come on down here with me. It's a privilege to be associated with you guys. And we've got ourselves a trophy buck, I do believe, my friend. If you got an older buck there, and we got a lot of work ahead of us, because the yardage may not be that bad, but the distance in between and the terrain in between, we've got some canyons, so it's going to be a lot of fun on the recovery.
Cool little deer. Check this bad boy out, Dan.
There he is. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the one, brother. Right there. Ooh, nice steep little spot.
On knobby basis, indicative of an older buck. Huh?
Yeah, older buck, 4.5, 5.5 years old. Beautiful early December Arizona Coues deer. I mean, this is exactly the kind of buck I wanted you to come see. Harvest, beautiful animal in his peak, right at the top of the mountain. Glassed him up at yardage and got the deal done. That left-handed shot, we just couldn't get the angle, and John, being the proficient marksman he is, he was able to get himself positioned for a left-handed shot at just about 690 yards. I mean, you got to get out there and practice with your equipment, but by golly, it works when you do it right. Great job. Way to go, my friend.
Thanks, bud.
A big advantage to John's scoring on opening morning was it gave us ample opportunity to really tag team and help Ed glass up a giant Arizona Coues buck. And that's exactly what we did. We reorganized our manpower, split up on several different ridges, and it was game on with all eyes focused on Ed and his buck of a lifetime.
These little deer, man, they're hard to find. Brian, work this cover over and come up with a doe. And right before evening, I looked around across the canyon, and it was interesting just to see the thing come through a bush and pop into view. And anyway, my first gray ghost was that evening.
Some days we went out of camp on foot. My favorite days we went out on the back of Mike's mules. And on one particular day, we were scattered all around this mountain range, about 4 miles packed in. And Ed and I glassed up a buck at about a mile and a half. We thought he was a young 3.5-year-old buck, but from that distance we thought, with other bucks not being visible that morning, we'd give this one a closer look. We rode the mules about a mile, dismounted, walked about 500 yards, got to a great vantage point for glassing. And like Coues deer earned their nickname, the Gray Ghost of the Desert, we never saw that buck again. But as that Arizona sun set to our west, Ed said, "Hey Dan, I think I have some deer, come over here." I came up and I saw that he was looking at a hill that I had totally ignored all day. Because when I looked at that hill, it didn't spell Coues deer out to me. But these deer are often humbling me and other people that guide for them. And sure enough, he'd picked up a couple of young bucks. When I was glassing these young bucks, I just saw that telltale sign, big antlers and ears behind a yucca, and I knew we were onto something special. Unfortunately, we knew the sun was going to be down before we'd be in position for a shot. But you can bet we all had a plan for that next morning.
We formulated this plan to go look for this deer, and John and Dan and I muled up again. Went up the same wash we've been going up. Got to the top, and we just saw the most impressive sunrise. A good omen for the day, perhaps.
So after seeing that big buck at last light, I'm sure I'm not the only one who was a little excited and got a little less sleep than the night before, hoping, praying, thinking that Arizona Coues deer might still be on that mountain come daybreak. Because quite frankly, if he was on the other side of the hill, it would be a 3-hour walk just to start our glassing effort on top of a 2-hour mule ride. After we got in position, we got to our first vantage point, and we were fortunate to pick up all 3 bucks only 200 yards from where they were the night before. As typical with Coues deer, I was worried about them getting out of sight while we maneuvered for a shot. So I volunteered to stay up on top, keep glass on the biggest buck, while Ed, John, and Terrence moved into shooting position.
We actually walked across the open, was the only way to get there, across this open until we got to about 700 yards, and then I cut down this draw kind of out of sight, and I found a really good position for Ed. And Ed's like, "Well, I'm going to shoot standing." And I said, "Well, just try this." And he lays up against this rock, and it's just like a bench, only you're standing behind it instead of sitting behind it. And I asked Ed, I said, "How good can you hold?" And he said, "Well, I can hold in about 2 inches." And this is 640-something yards. We end up coming down this wash quite a ways. We've got a good position here. I was looking for this type of position with all these big boulders around. He's standing here, elbow rested against this rock. He's got his hand in against here, well supported in the front end. That's a really good solid position, and it's not going to inhibit the way the gun tracks, so it's pretty nice. So all we need is this critter to get up for us. Finally the deer stood up. These couple other little bucks come over there and harassed this older buck that was laying down. Got him stood up, and then we're trying to get this all put together, and luckily we didn't have hardly any wind to deal with on that one. What little bit of wind there was pretty much down valley right at her back, so that made that part of it pretty easy. But Ed said he hit that deer within about 2 inches of where he was holding. Made a really good shot on that buck. Nice! Beautiful, Ed. Beautiful, buddy. Worked the bolt this one for fun, but it hit him right at the...
Diamond Outfitters of Arizona specializes in trophy hunting for elk, Coues deer, mountain lion, mule deer, and more. To book your hunt, call us at 520-730-8147 or on the web at azdiamondoutfitters.com. For more information on the products featured on today's show, please visit us online at longrangerestore.com or call 1-866 754-7618.
Okay, when he turns around, Mary's turning.
Clear it.
Yep.
Going live. Had a really good rest over rock. Had an excellent broadside shot and felt good and sent it.
Nice! Beautiful, Ed. Beautiful, buddy. Work the bolt. This is for fun. Did it get him right in the spine? Nice! Just gonna watch it. Beautiful. How we doing now, buddy?
So I saw Ed's buck drop almost darn near right in his tracks, and I'm not sure who is more excited, Ed, his good buddy John, or me as the guide and outfitter who's feeling the pressure of wanting to show these guys such a great time. They checked in with me on the radio to see if I had heard or seen what had happened, and I simply replied, time of death, 9:13. I was excited too. I gathered up my gear. I had about a half-mile walk to catch up to the guys, and when I went to shake Ed's hand, he just grabbed me and gave me a big bear hug. I said, welcome, my brother, to the fraternity of Coues deer hunters.
What a great shot that 26 nozzle put on you. Holy cow.
One and done, buddy.
One and done.
Good job, man. Whew. That's a nice buck.
That is a giant.
Finally got my my little gray ghost there. Nice buck. Just a great hunt. I don't know what else to say. It was a real happy ending.
Well, all in all, this was a great hunt and a great experience. Get to see different country, different animals, different ways of hunting, different ways of glassing. I learned a lot from Dan and Brian on this hunt. The way they hunt, the way they glass, really interesting to see. But Ed and I were able to take a couple of really good deer. I mean, they're both pretty respectable deer, and had a great time hunting with Dan and Brian. Mike and his stock really made all this come together for us, and it was the kind of hunt like I like to hunt. Pack in and away from people, and we saw 0 other hunters on this hunt. Again, like I said before, I would hunt with Dan Adler and or his guides anywhere, anytime.
Gray Ghosts of the Desert, they definitely earn their name, and there's a special place in the heart of those that guide and hunt for them, and both of you gentlemen are now part of that distinguished fraternity, and that's a big deal. These deer to me are what bighorn sheep are to you and your legacy. These are my legacy and my family, and that's a big deal to me to not only bring you guys in here, but to have this kind of success. We wanted you to at least get representative deer, and both of you harvested very, very mature bucks. This is probably a book buck, maybe covers book easily, and John's is a beautiful 4.5, 5.5-year-old buck as well. So 2 of the best deer we've ever taken out of here, and 2 of the best bucks we've taken all season. So just a really great hunt. With the exception of one day, we had great weather, and even the bad day wasn't horrible, but you guys killed the 2 biggest bucks we've seen all week, so just perfect shooting.
It's very special in my heart and will never come out on TV just what a big deal it was to be able to bring Diamond Outfitters of Arizona and the Best of the West team into one camp for one incredible hunt. It's very special. I know I'll never forget it, and I hope John and Ed never forget it as well. I'm sure they won't.